Hi everybody. Today I'd like to speak about one of my all-time favorite cello concertos, which is the Schumann Cello Concerto. I've studied this with Bernard Greenhouse, who in turn studied this with Pablo Casals. So hopefully I'll have a few interesting things to tell you. I'd like to start with a quote from Schumann. So Schumann wrote, "Romanticism does not rest in figures or forms. It will naturally occur if the performer is a poet at all." And today I'd like to give you some tips and techniques for making your playing a little more poetic. When talking about Schumann's works, it's important to mention the two imaginary characters that he invented and used in his writing as a music critic. The impulsive, spontaneous and extrovert Florestan, and the inward and thoughtful Eusebius. Those two characters alternate in this piece, and I think that it's very important to really be aware of the difference in the extrovert and the introvert and try to bring it out. The very beginning to me is more of a Eusebius and introverted. So I don't use a lot of bow. This is what Stephen Isserlis calls a very personal concerto, and I agree with him. It's not the Dvořák, which is heroic and out there. It's not the Elgar, which is also kind of a lament for humankind. This is a more personal affair. So the beginning, I like to use quite a narrow vibrato. And this shift should not be jagged, should not be fast. I shift on the old bow, meaning I start moving my finger while the down bow is still moving. You got the accent. And here on the A, I open my vibrato ever so slightly. So that to connect to the C, there is some kind of a growth there. There is no crescendo, but the color should open up. When we have the accent, it is very important to pay attention to Schumann's accents. In bar 8, this is more of a left-hand accent, vibrato accent, but you can also use more air in your bow there. And when we have those syncopations, we obviously don't sustain, obvious to me, I don't like to sustain those so that to create the feeling of the syncopation. And another word about the very opening, the orchestra has those three chords, and the top note of those chords, the E, the A, and the C, come back again and again throughout the piece. It's one of the unifying motifs. See if you can find every time those intervals come back, and see how Schumann changes the character and builds a piece with those three notes. I like to connect the low C in bar 15 to the high B by sliding my first finger on the G string inaudibly, but even though we cannot really hear that shift or barely hear it, it makes us avoids a hole in the sound there. This is not what should be heard, but this is what I do inaudibly. And this is to create a more organic shift. Your instinct might be to jump and try to find the note, which is possible too. I just like a more fluid feel there. This descending one tone or half tone comes back again and again in this concerto, and you can put words to it if it helps you feel the nuance of and the inflection. So obviously the D has a bit more intense vibrato than the C, and a little more bow pressure and speed as well. So if we are also to compare with perhaps the one in bar 19 is more important. It is under a slur, so it's more lyrical perhaps. It's soaring. More matter of fact here in bar 15, and then more poetic perhaps. I like this 3/3 fingerings there. That's a kind of like a technique for a little more poetic expression there. And again, this is more vibrato, more air together. Here in bar 30, I like dropping. Be sure those are very clear. Here how I really enunciate with my fingers. And so here you can play it in one bow. If you take the tempo that Schumann wrote, and he actually wrote 144, crossed it out, wrote 130 because a cellist convinced him to do it. So a lot of us play much slower than that. I encourage you to try and play as close to 130 as you can, at least for the first theme. When we get to here, I take it slower, but I think really this tempo marking can work. Try to keep close to the tempo markings that Schumann wanted. That said, he never heard the concerto performed in his lifetime, and he might have changed it again. Who knows? Okay, so here you can use two bows or one. I like connecting this high F and the D in bar 33. But I wouldn't connect all of them. In fact, I play them quite short and separated. And then here give the A to the orchestra because they're really continuing our line. Etc. Here. Again, this descending half tone now. So we have more vibrato and less vibrato. I don't think you want to really shift on the D string there. There's too little time. It might sound a little cheap. So I like a short shift there. Second time around. So first time simple. noise. Maybe it's too much, but I like it. So this is a special slide. It's almost like a portamento. So I slide also from the A to the F. Try to vibrate on those notes. It's not easy because it's up, but it will add a lot to the quality of your tone up in the higher positions. Also, I pull my hand back so that there's a lot of meat on the string, and so we achieve a thicker, richer sound. As opposed to playing more perpendicular or from above, I really flatten my hand and support it sort of lightly with the thumb so that the thumb acts as an anchor. And then this is the end of the phrase. So the C is a new beginning. Here I jump. You can hear the G vibrating, the vibration of the strings. That helps to connect the G to the E, even if you're really jumping. And here I like to also give it to the orchestra. Really elongate a little bit the G so that the orchestra continues my line. I like to vibrate this C with giving it a little accent, which is written, but also vibrato. Bars 82, 83, try to find a way to vary the repeated bar. Maybe simple first time. Or more on the string, less on the string. Or the opposite. I don't know, whatever works for you. Just don't play those two bars the same way. Similarly, bars 86 and 87, you can change your fingerings perhaps. So here in bar 90 and 91, the strings have an accent in the middle of the bar. We don't have it, so but the direction of the phrase goes into the middle of the bar for us as well. Bar 152. The F sharp minor version of the beginning. So if you can shape it, so again the vibrato grows. I like to sit a little bit on that A, just the height of the phrase. Again, thus descending half tone. So remember the first three notes from the beginning. Here, they're hidden in a different key. Bar 159, we have C sharp in the cello, and then F sharp in the celli. So C sharp, F sharp, G sharp in A. So instead of we have. Hopefully I didn't confuse it too much, but those are basically the same relationship, the same notes in a different key, just in a very different, with a different character. Here it is resignation. Important to connect the dots. This B sharp, B, A, and notice 168 has a different color. It's a different chord in the orchestra. So again from 165. Bar 176, we have again those 4 notes from the beginning, or 3 notes from the beginning. If we look at bar 71, I steal a little time from the D so that I have time for a leisurely, more or less leisurely shift into the B flat at the end of that bar. I'm going to show you how I work on this high passage in, say, bar 68. So here's my tuner. I also like to shift on the old bow, mostly. So that the left hand is always ahead of the bow. Go down, and then up bow. And this just makes things much more smooth than if you were to kind of jump and find your way that way. So here I just I tap the string real quick before I play the high D. The hardest thing for me is to catch that G sharp on the C string. So I really isolate this problem. And here you have to strengthen your fingers. I haven't played this concerto in a couple of years, so it's rusty. This is also hard to catch that G sharp and play it cleanly. So going from thumb position to fourth position is hard. and then we have those three chords again. But instead of we have and don't rush that B flat. And we'll see you next time for the second movement. Thanks for watching. Bye.